So this is a 95 Chevy k2500. This is k2500 because it's got a transfer case. And if I take the drive line out, which those are 7/16 bolts, so we're going to go up here and take these out. I think those are going to be 7/16 also. And you got these up here, and those are going to be 7/16 also, so I'm going to take those off. Alright, so I pried here with the pry bar, and got my axle loose, so it just goes out towards the back like so. Alright, so I'm going to kind of jump all over the place to get this done. So I think my second step is I'm going to start taking these bolts out here, then take the starter out, and then get my flex plate bolts. And then I may work on some of these connectors and stuff. And then we're going to have to break our transfer case off the transmission in order to let it down. So these connectors on the Prindle switch, they're stuck on there really good. I had to pry it out. I ended up having to replace this connector because the wires were all frayed, and they actually had to replace the Prindle switch also because it was all messed up because someone had glued it in there. So now I'm taking off the transfer case linkage, and now I'm also going to have to take off the linkage for the Prindle switch. Alright, so here I'm going to pry out on my little linkage here, pulls out, and there's going to be some Torx bolts that hold this linkage into place that are on top that I'm going to get to after this. Don't pry this clip out, you just leave it in place. It helps adjust it for your linkage up top, so don't pull it out. I put this right back in. This linkage is broken, so there's a problem later when I put it back together. Alright, so now I'm pressing on both sides of this connector here. It pulls out nice and easy. And these are the Torx that you have to get to. I do believe they're Torx 25s, I think is what they were, but you'll have to make sure you're for yourself. Alright, so now on these little clips here, they pry in, so that you go underneath this one right here, and it pries and then it releases. It's the same on this whole harness. So here I'm just working on the harness, getting all my little connectors and stuff, pushing this out of the way, make sure it's free of the transmission so when it comes down it'll tear a whole bunch of stuff off. So these, I gotta take this cross member off. These are 19s, I do remember. There's 4 of them. I gotta take these loose. Then I also have to take my bolts out for my transfer case here mount, for the transmission mount. And this is all just loose before I go after my transfer case. So I have to drain the fluid in the transfer case, and then I have to break all my bolts loose of the transfer case, and I have help from a jack and a person to help get out of the way. The bolts for this cross member, they have these spacers on them. I want to remember those. And these bolts again are for the transmission mount in between the transfer case and the trans. So I did a video that I have to take my exhaust off in order to get this bottom part here. The cross member that I was just showing you taken off, that has to come off in order to get the exhaust out. So I have to have the transmission supported. So I support the transmission, and then after I get the transmission supported, then I'm able to get the transfer case loose. I put an arrow on the bar there so I know which way it goes, and now I can get my bolts loose from my transfer case. Alright, so I'm going to get these little clips out. So I'm going to get a pick in behind where these lines, these are transmission lines that go into the trans. I'll work on those. You just go around and you work them out. I'll show you here in a second. Now with everything exposed, I'm going after my torque converter bolts. There's 6 of them. You want to mark where they line up on the flex plate for when they line everything back up later, because they can only go on one way. So I'm using this starter and the pry bar here to move the flex plate around to get better access to my different bolts. It may be a little easier to use the crank, but I'm doing this by myself, so I'm just doing it so I can move it real easy. So now that it spins freely, I'm going to move on to the next thing. Alright, so now I've already drained the transfer case. I got all my bolts loose, and I was able to get the transfer case out with some help. so it actually goes back and then it comes down. It's a weird thing. You're gonna have to get a new gasket for the transmission. So it came down like that, and it, you know, came out. I had a lot of help getting it out. It's a really heavy transfer case. So now I have access to my transmission bell housing bolts with it drop down and it's supported correctly. I can get to all these bolts that are hidden for the dipstick, for the top of the transmission, and everything that's holding like fuel lines and stuff like that. So here I'm using a long extension and a flexible socket and a deep socket to get all these bolts, because they are like stud nuts, stud bolts and stuff that are holding things on there.
So up here on the top, there's this bolt here. There's a nut usually, but it's already been out one time. So we gotta get that bolt. Another bolt on the other side, right in that area.
Now with my dipstick nut off, I can push my dipstick all the way up and make it a little stuck, because it gets stuck to the back of the engine because it's a 454, because it takes up most of the engine bay. So I'm going to push it up out of the way, and we should have better access to our stuff. So I got our transmission better strapped down so it's not going to go anywhere. And now I'm going to break it, separate it here at the pry bar. There she goes. Now that I'm at the real issue why we're taking this apart is for the flex plate. It's got some bad teeth on it because it's a little warped. I'm going to pop all these bolts out of here real quick like, and I'm going to put it back on. I can't remember exactly what the torque is, but you just have to torque it to specified torque. So it's critical to have a little bit of Loctite on here, and the specified torque is very important. So let's just wiggle this off here. Can't remember exactly what size they are, but you want to make sure that it is correct. The first flex plate I had that I put on here was cut wrong, so it wasn't the right shape. So I had to order another one, and it was wrong also. So I had to order another one, and the third flex plate fit, and we were able to get on with our life. So this takes over the course of about a week because I was waiting on a new flex plate. So here I'm tightening this to the specified torque. I'm using a tool to hold the flex plate, and it just goes here down the grooves. You can have someone hold the crank pulley also when you do it, but I can't remember exactly what the torque was for this. But we're gonna wrap up the end of the video here, so we're gonna torque this, and then I'm gonna end the video with putting the transmission already back in. You want to make sure that the fluid's checked afterwards, because you can lose fluid, and that you're always using the proper safety equipment as far as lifting and stuff like that. If you have any questions or anything like that, or you have any comments or anything you'd like to add to the video, just give me a like, give me a subscribe, tell a friend about it, and as always, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and have a good one.
Fixer good.
Be a fixer. Be your own.